Hey guys, this is Jay. Continuing in the theme of upgrading but still using stock style parts, I have the driven diesel power steering line kit. So getting right into it, these are especially nice because all of the hard lines it comes with are precision bent stainless lines. And one thing they do differently from stock, instead of just kind of putting a crimp fitting on the end of the stainless steel line and crimping it over a rubber hose, they have brazed flare nuts on the end of the stainless lines, and they come with separate hydraulic hoses that have these really nice rotating fittings here. So it lets you get all the hard lines in place pretty easily, and then have a much more robust hydraulic fitting here that's less prone to failing on the truck. And I believe these are also rated for a higher pressure than stock, so they'll go well with that PSC power steering pump I just went over, since it is higher output than stock. One thing I do want to make absolutely clear about this kit is that these are only the pressure lines. You still have to use the factory return lines, which is one, this rubber hose right here, but you also have another return line from the steering gear that is partially a hard line. So this, I didn't quite understand this when I ordered this kit. It does not replace all of the hard lines in the system. It just replaces the pressure lines. So if your truck is like mine, where these lines are getting pretty rusty and you want to replace all the hard lines, you will need to buy this line separate. I mean, this line was so rusty that when I took it off the steering gear, the flare nut was rusted to the line and it just sheared the line off. So fortunately, my local AutoZone had the part in stock, so I am able to replace this. But again, just to be clear, the driven diesel kit is only the pressure lines. If you need to replace all of the hard lines, then you will need to buy the return line from the steering gear separately. But comparing these to stock, as I was saying, the main difference is that instead of the steel hard line terminating directly into the rubber line with this kind of crimp on fitting, you have a brazed flare nut on the end that mates with the corresponding hydraulic hose. So these, I'll be able to show you a little bit when they're installed on the truck, and I'll probably give comments on any installation differences with this style setup right here. But guys, this is largely just giving you the peace of mind of having all of the pressure lines being higher pressure rated stainless steel. So I'm looking forward to getting these on. Peeking up in here, you can see the driven diesel power steering line, which runs right here. And what's nice about this is because they make this flexible section seemingly a bit longer, it actually kind of puts the hose in a bit of a bind down here, which actually is beneficial because it's kind of hard to see, but the exhaust manifold is right there, and the factory line runs pretty close to that manifold, so much so that whenever I had these installed a while ago, I got the tech to heat wrap this line, but with the way this line is longer, it actually pushes it away from the exhaust manifold, so you don't have to heat wrap it anymore. One thing that's really nice about these power steering lines, since the hard lines and soft lines are not crimped together in one piece, they have flare nut connections, it allows you to get the short hard line portions situated on the power steering pump, Hydroboost, and steering gear before you try to tighten or even install the flex lines. And so that was really helpful because you don't have to weave an entire line through all this stuff down in here. I mean, there's so many wiring looms that run through this engine bay that GM actually uses the power steering lines. You can kind of see it right down in there. They actually use the power steering lines to route some of the wires. So not having the 1 foot to 16-inch length soft line to weave around all that stuff was very nice for installation. Well, as you might imagine, that's pretty much all there is to show you. I mean, other than going over the differences and advantages over these driven diesel lines as compared to the stock lines. There's certainly not any action shots for me to show you since I didn't do a full installation here. The only other thing about the installation that I do want to mention, and they of course go over this in their installation manual, is that though there are flare nuts brazed onto the hard lines, they do not spin freely like the ones that go into the Hydroboost and steering gear and power steering pump. So you do need to use a wrench on the hard lines to make sure they do not turn, because if you just try to tighten the spinning fittings on the soft lines onto the hard lines without bracing the hard lines with a wrench, you will break the flare nut off its brazed connection, and that's game over right there if you do that. So be sure you use a pair of wrenches to tighten these up. But I haven't had any leaks. I mean, they all tightened up really easily, and again, it was pretty nice to be able to put the hard lines in place first and then get the soft lines routed exactly where you wanted them to be. I recently replaced the power steering lines on a friend's LB7, and he did not have this driven diesel kit. He had just the regular replacement lines, and it was significantly more difficult to have to fit those in there. And we also ended up having to take one of them back off and clean it out, because you know, when you've got one line or one end of the line already in place, and then you're having to wrestle the other end through all the wiring and stuff, it's pretty easy to jam the flared tube up against a dirty frame rail. And that's what ended up happening, is we got a bunch of gunk off of his frame rail jammed up into the fitting, and so we had to take it off and clean it out. So yeah, having these driven diesel lines where you can get both of the hard line connections in place, I mean not tight of course, and then join them with the soft line, it's a big advantage. And you know, they weren't tremendously expensive, so getting the stainless higher pressure rated lines along with an easier installation is very nice. However, I would have liked the driven diesel kit to be more explicit in the fact that it's only the pressure lines. It really did sound like they were replacing all of the hard lines in the system with stainless lines. So it is what it is. I mean, I was able to put a new hard line in place of that one return line that was completely destroyed, but yeah, would have been nice to know that I would have had to replace more than just what the kit includes if I want all the hard lines to be new, and especially stainless. I wasn't able to find a stainless replacement that spur of the moment, but no leaks, and it's better than it was before. So thanks for watching, and remember, if it's smoking, it's broken.